Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supergirl, Lucifer, as well as Gotham. Like always, if I end up talking about something that you don't want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I have the time slots of when I start talking about each of the respective shows I'm talking about in this particular episode, so that way you can skip to whatever you want to listen to. But first of all, we're going to start off with this week's episode of Supergirl. So good, and so much went down. It's like Cyborg Superman, which isn't someone I'm like that character I'm not familiar with at all. I find it funny because someone had brought up before the fact is they're like, oh, that because when Hank was initially introduced to the show, they weren't 100% sure who they wanted him to be. They knew that was going to be something back in season 1. They just didn't know who they wanted him to be. Some people are like, oh, maybe Cyborg Superman would be kind of cool. And now you see that Hank is Cyborg Superman because Hank is actually alive this entire time, which I love. Because I was thinking like, oh, it's like when I saw the intro plus I saw the preview and everything, I was like, oh man, Magon's blood is doing that to him, make him a little crazy. It's like, nope, that's the real Hank Henshaw. It never crossed my mind that he'd still be alive, but I love it. And the fact is, he's Cyber Superman, which I'm not familiar with the character at all. The only other experience I've ever had with Cyber Superman was the Injustice game. That was kind of one of Superman's costumes is like him as Cyber Superman. So that was kind of cool. That combined with the fact is that Magon's secret finally came out and everything, and so it ended up being a battle between them, and then a fight between Guardian and Phil. It's just all around a very action-packed episode. Just breaking everything down. The fact is Guardian has to track down a vigilante that's going around killing everybody. I know. I love the fact is that Kara is kind of like, I mean, really? I mean, he's wearing the mask, hiding his identity. You don't see me do it. It's like, well, technically, you don't have to do it because your alter ego is your mask. So it's kind of like you're doing a similar thing because you're hiding in plain sight. But I get the technicality there. And then she throws out that little hint of being like, yeah, my cousins work with a vigilante, the tools and everything, mask. I was like, ah! I mean, granted, it could be anyone. I'm sure there's a lot of masked people in the DC universe that use tools. But we definitely know it's not the Green Arrow because, the Flash crossover brought it up. There's there is no Green Arrow in this. So, Batman, it's like, it makes you wonder: are they not outright allowed to say it? So they have to kind of throw in blatant reference. The moment they said it, I got giddy. I was like, yeah, because I already threw it out there because I was an idiot and thought Perry White's name was. He was saying Wayne instead of White, so I thought but he was talking to Perry White like in the first episode of the season. So I kind of threw out there, it's like, oh, that means Gotham, Bruce and everything, which it was completely wrong then. But now it's like, hey, I mean, who knows? Maybe on this Earth it might be kind of a Flashpoint situation where it's like, hey, his dad actually became, Batman. So it might be a situation like that. You really don't know. Because when like on Earth 2, Oliver's dad was the Green Arrow. So I guess, it makes you wonder, was that kind of a reference to that or not? Nevertheless, it's not important. So it's just very curious. Just the fact is they throw that in there. So that's kind of nice. Like I said, other stuff kind of referencing, the whole go back to season 1 of Legends of Tomorrow kind of have possibly that one line from Vandal Savage kind of referencing there might be a Batman. I mean, really, because it's kind of hard to say because now you look back on those lines, you're kind of like, that might not be true at all because it's like Superman only exists on the Earth that, I always refer to it as Earth X because it's like we've already been to like kind of cycle through 19 Earths already. I mean, granted, who's this? That's kind of interesting though. Like, it makes you wonder, I'm going off on a tangent here, but the whole, multiple whales things, it never crossed my mind till now. Oh, I thought about it before, but I never talked about it. It's like, makes you wonder where any of those whales from Supergirl's Earth. It was just kind of crossing my mind. Nevertheless, not important. The fact of the matter is that, let's start off with the fact that Mon-El was taken by Cadmus, which interestingly enough, we found out like Daxamite's weaknesses. It's like lead ends up poisoning them. So, I mean, part of me is kind of wondering, oh, was it just a regular? I mean, I was like, could it have just been a regular bullet? It's like, no, they went to the point now. It's like, no, it's a lead bullet. So it seems like Dexamites do have a weakness to lead. So I guess, I mean, that's kind of interesting. It's kind of like, because at first I was like, oh, doesn't he have all of Kara's powers? He might not be as strong as her, but he's invincible, isn't he? But it's like, oh, no, it's because that's his weakness. So I was like, because I brought that up before. I was wondering what they were, because it's like, Kryptonians have kryptonite. So I was like, okay, so their weakness is their week delayed. So that's kind of interesting. Plus, there was a little secret Monel was about to tell Kara his like the truth. It seems like it has to do something about the whole Prince situation. What makes you wonder is like what I'm thinking is, what if we end up finding out? I mean, just throwing out there because I literally just thought about this. What if Monel ended up being the prince from the story, and like basically he's ashamed of himself because he wasn't saved by a prince. He was saved by a guard that told him either because he felt like he left his people to die, because it's like, because he's a guard, why would a guard get that special treatment? And it's like, it's something you didn't really think about. And now it's like, oh, maybe he was best friends with the prince. Sure. But it's like, no, he's the prince. He's actually, Daxam royalty, I think. I just thought about that. That's kind of interesting. That'd be very interesting. Maybe that's the secret he's hiding. And maybe it's because, or maybe he ran away himself. He didn't get anyone's help. He just ran away. He left his people to die, and he blames himself. He holds that in his heart. Like he blames himself for being, he has Kara telling him, I was like, oh, you're brave. You have the potential to be a hero. And maybe like he wants to live up to that expectation because he feels like maybe that's why he's kind of acting a little douchey and stuff like that. Is also because it's like willing to do whatever it takes to get work done. I mean, the whole like being hard muscle for a loan shark last episode. But it could also tie into the fact is that maybe it's just his way of just trying to deal with the fact of what he did, leaving his people to die in his mind, So that'd be kind of interesting. Plus, we learned a little bit more about Mama Luther, Lillian. She kind of revealed herself to Kara. She's like, you're Lex and Lena's mom. And I love her perspective on it. It's like, my son was a hero. Your Superman is the real villain here. It's like, my son is the real Superman. I'm like, wow. Like her perspective of being like, oh, he came to my son. He came with Lex, promising him the world. Basically, I guess that they would work together to you kind of make the world a better place. I bring it up every time because it's the only thing I can draw from, especially because I'm trying to put this perspective here of how, like, in Smallville, I know you're probably sick of hearing about that, but it's like, I have to draw comparisons. Same network and, both DC, connected, because it's like, in my mind, even though there's no quote unquote Superman show, in a sense, in a kind of divergent way, you can look at Smallville as being kind of like a somewhat Superman for the CW. It's kind of like the Superman show that doesn't exist for, Supergirl to exist. It's kind of like that. So it's like, basically you just get the gist of Smallville and you kind of transfer it over and you're kind of like, okay, that's technically Superman's background for like the DC universe they're setting up on. Well, what is referred to as the Arrowverse. Nevertheless, I'm getting too caught up in that. But the point was, it's like he's like, oh, we're going to join together and everything. But it's like, my son saw him for who he really was, that a being of immense power, just being left unchecked. And when he tried to do the right thing, try to take down this evil villain Superman, he got turned into a villain, and he's spending the rest of his days locked in jail. It's like, because that's always the thing, because Lex, I think from most things, for the little bit I know about Lex from the different things I've watched, I'm never, once again, not a comic book dude, so I don't really know comic books that well. But for me, it's a combination of jealousy because of what Superman can do, combined with the fact of the matter is it's kind of similar to the concept in Batman v Superman, just like you cannot trust a being of that much power, like an unstoppable being like that. It's like it's only a matter of time till they kind of turn their. It's like they could try and save you in one moment and then just destroy us the next. So it's kind of the same concept. Like, it's so that mindset is very similar. It's kind of a mindset that I feel like Lex has had in different, iterations, different versions of him. But it's also a combination of just jealousy because it's like, you're as smart as you are, but you never will have the power he does. There's nothing I think right there are certain things on Earth that can probably give you close enough to that power, but that almost invulnerability, it was just interesting getting her perspective on it, because it's like, because his mom has never come up in any other things. Even Smallville, like her story played like a smaller part of trying to keep Lex on the up and up, trying to keep him from battling the darkness within him. But even then, like Lex's mom is something that has never come up. So it's kind of interesting to see that perspective of being like, hey, my son was in it right. It does make you wonder, how would Lena react? It does make you wonder, just will Kara eventually tell her the truth or not? Also, Jeremiah, like the fact is he popped up, he saved Kara and Mon-El, that was cool and everything. But part of me is like, how are you just walking around a facility like that? That's a little fishy. I mean, it's like, he's like, I've been surviving here for 15 years. It's like, I mean, if that was the case, it seemed like he would have been, I don't know. It didn't seem like. I mean, it seemed like he wasn't modified or anything. He's like, "Oh, I'm glad you're safe. I'm so proud of you." So he's been keeping up with what Kara's been doing, but it's like, how have you stayed like normal during this whole situation? Like, I'm a little suspicious of that. Did he let Kara go on purpose, or is he really like, is he with Cadmus actually and under their control? I feel like there's got to be something more to this than that. That's kind of another thing too. I'm surprised they didn't. I guess because of the whole Hank Henshaw thing, but it's like I was kind of halfway expecting because I completely forgot about it until it popped up in the episode that I actually read the guide ahead of time. I was like, what this episode was about her going up against Cyborg Superman, so I've completely forgot about that. And when I saw Dean Cates, I was like, oh, he must be Cyber Superman, because obviously a little fan service and whatnot. But turned out not to be the case. Not unless there's, I mean, I'm sure there's got to be something else up with that. It's like, but why though? Like, how like, I'm confused about that. How is that whole situation happening? I don't know. I guess we just have to wait to find out, further, get more information about it. But like I said, how did Kara not think that was suspicious? The fact is he's walking around of his own free will. It's like he's in the Cadmus facility, not unless he escaped and didn't, like, he came back when he found out they had Kara. Maybe he has eyes and ears connected to Cadmus. Like I said, very suspicious. Like, how did he handle that whole situation? We never actually got to see how he handled it. Maybe he was like, okay, maybe he's working with Lillian. I mean, like I said, we'll just have to wait to see, so. But kind of, since I'm talking about the whole Cadmus thing and going back to Lena, I don't think she'd 100% agree with her mom. It's hard to say because we didn't have an idea where Lena stands on it. I mean, she's not okay with eradicating aliens. It's like, sure, knowing who they are and everything like that, like kind of that type of thing, recognizing who's an alien. But it doesn't seem like she's very anti-alien. She's not as, I don't know what the term pro-alien as Kara would like her to be, but I think she's decently shown that she is pro-alien, especially the way she's befriended Supergirl like that. So, but like I said, I thought that was going to make an interesting dynamic, especially, it's like, because I was thinking like, oh, that'd be an interesting thing, like to see how that would happen if like she had her identity, but it's like, no, Kara now knows. I mean, granted, she doesn't know, Kara and Supergirl are the same person, but because there's a lot of stuff too. Because obviously Cyborg Superman knows her identity now too. Because at the end of the episode, the reason why they needed her blood was to get access to the Fortress of Solitude, which is like, how the hell do you know where that is? I mean, maybe because he was with the DEO, so the government's probably known where the fortress is, but it's not like knowing where it is will do you any good. Because it's like, that doesn't change the fact that the only person that can have access to that vast data is like, one of the L's, so, but I'll get to that a little bit later on because that's going to lead into stuff I'm going to talk much later on. But speaking of Cyber Superman, he kicked Kara's ass, dude. Holy crap, that was like a knockout, drag out fight. And I love the fact that she burned off his face a little. I was like, but it's just like, dude. And I love you get to see how much that hate, like, cause we've only got to know a little bit of the original Hank Henshaw. Bit of a douchebag. I can't remember if it ever came up that he had family or not. I don't think he did, because that was kind of the reason why John took his form in the first place, because like he didn't really have anyone that would invest him. I don't think he did. Maybe his family is dead. Like, it makes you wonder, because I don't remember that ever coming up why he was very anti-alien. I don't remember now. I mean, maybe that was discussed, or maybe he just, I mean, I guess he enjoys his job and he loves Cadmus a lot too, because it's like, hey, you're doing what like the DEO was originally meant to exterminate aliens, not help them or cooperate with them. So it's interesting to see that deep-seated hate for everyone. I mean, all aliens like that. So that's kind of interesting. And since it's right there in the back of my mind, I love the fact that we had Mon-El kind of being like, hey, there's this whole mating ritual here on Earth, which I love the opening where he's just talking to that guy. He's like, yeah, oh, that ring is it signifies, you being with someone, right? It's like, oh man, because trying to get him talking and everything, he's like, oh man, your wife must be ugly. Like, the fact is, the way you look, the way you do, so obviously she can't be that pretty. I was like, you're such a douchebag. And the guy was like, about to point a gun at him, but, Mondo took that moment to strike. But it's just kind of like, I get why you were doing, you're trying to aggravate him, but it's like, the thing is, that sounds like something you would just casually say because, he doesn't have tact or whatever, so just to me. But the fact of the matter is, it seems like he is developing feelings for Kara. It's just like, wow. And you see Jimmy kind of definitely catching on to it, like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, because I'm very interested to see where that goes, because we already saw how Jimmy got during the Flash crossover when it was like, yo, here's Kara acting a little differently, getting all giddy around this guy and stuff. Like, I got feelings for, and, even though they're broken up and they seem like they're okay, I'm sure it's still not the easiest thing to be like, well, seeing someone else have an interest in the girl you like. I don't know if Wynn's kind of picked that up or not. He probably has, but he's not, acting the same way Jimmy was, because Jimmy, in a way, got the girl but lost the girl, so I guess, it didn't go have a happily ever after for him. And but it's going to be interesting to see that going forward, because they had thrown that out there. Like I said, me being me, wanting my young Justice in the shape or form, I wanted him with Miss Martian, which they have yet to meet. I want that meeting to happen to see if there was anything clicking, but now it seems like he might be a car, which is fine, which I'm fine too, but it's like, yeah, you want to do that because he isn't Superboy, so it's okay. It's like, because you know what that means? That means there's room for them to add a Superboy for them to eventually get. Just the thought of it simply amazing. It's so amazing. Nevertheless, speaking of Jimmy and everything, having to clear your name, that was kind of interesting. And I love the fact of the matter is Wynn was so easy to crack. Like, Alex is like noticing by the way he was so defensive about Guardian and everything. He's just like, oh, yeah, nah, trust me, I've got it on good authority. He's not guilty or whatever. She's like, spill it. I literally can, there's 100 things I could do to make you spill with just one phrase. He said, okay, it's James, it's Jimmy. And then she's like, you idiots. What were you thinking? He's like, don't tell Kara or whatever. So it's going to be interesting because now she's in the know. The only person that doesn't know amongst them now is Kara. So it's going to be interesting how that progresses. But man, they really do a good job of going all out with Guardians fights. I really appreciate how they've you kind of get that, you got that arrow feel to that, like, hand-to-hand combat dude, and I loved it. Just when he's kind of shooting that hook off to kind of yank away, and then it explodes, he's like, I thought you told me up and left. He's like, I did, that was for you to avoid the bullets. I didn't know he had missiles too. Or grenades or something like that. But it's like those two make a really good team, and just being like, okay, and block on the left, boom, just like, it's so good. Like, I know in crossing the streams, like, because I don't know too many tech support, like, people. I mean, granted, I take that back. It's like Felicity on Arrow, so, but she doesn't go hands-on tech support like that to that degree. I mean, granted, Jimmy's still kind of a novice at this, so, he kind of needs to understand. Even if he is a novice, it's like because they gel together so well, like, he's there to have Jimmy's back, be like, okay, left swing now, bam, he can block. But just like the fighting, you can definitely see the Arrow touches there, and I appreciate that. Just like, I don't know, dude. Just this episode was just so good with the action, man. The fights just, it's so good all around. Just like, and like I said, Kara and Cyborg Superman, like, just smashing around, and then Magan and John, loved his reaction, because you'd expect that reaction, especially because it's like he's seeing stuff. First he sees his family, then he sees one of the DEO agents as a white Martian, and he looks at those cells, like, from when Alex is studying, and it's like, she's like, I don't recognize it. He's like, I do. And he got super pissed. I'm surprised he acted as calmly as he did at first, because he just walked up to her. Like, he didn't just straight up attack her. And she's like, John, I'm sorry. Like, that's why she went back to check on him, because she knew there'd be side effects. Which apparently those side effects is that basically the white Martians were looking for a way to eradicate. It's basically genocide, which they basically did. The question is, like, where are the rest of the white Martians, I'm wondering, because Magan is like, it seems like she's not on good terms. Like, I figured as much. She was the white Martian from the story she told, that she tried to help as many people as she could, but the other white Martians found out. So it's like, it's going to be interesting, because we've met one white Martian back in season 1. I don't know if that's going to come into play or not, because that white Martian was locked up. So I don't know if that's going to turn into something now or not, especially because they've moved to a different facility. So a lot of the people they had locked up in season 1, I don't think we'll ever see them. And I think a lot of them were probably like, and just kind of like, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But what about, no, don't worry about it. Focus on this. But what about I said focus on this, type of thing. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see. But you do see that she is very apologetic about it. And it's so weird seeing her in her like real form, because I guess it's because it's like you just look at the difference between a white Martian and a green Martian, and it's staggering just to see like just even like when you see her hulking over him. It's like, I guess because it's been a while since I've seen the like scale of comparison. It's like, holy crap, white Martians are like freaking massive compared to green Martians. Holy crap. And then like, but she wasn't really fighting him seriously, but he was just beating the crap out of her. He was like ready to kill her if he needed to, but she's like, go ahead. She's like, but this is who I want to be. I'm not going to be that me anymore. So I'm so interested to see where it goes. Like I said, because of my knowledge of Young Justice, I do know that her and John have an okay relationship. So I'm very curious to see where it's going to go. I mean, John had the right reaction because it's like, no, I don't care. Your people murdered my family. It's like he had like a natural response. Like people would act like that. It's like, I'm not going, I mean, it's going to take a while especially because, it's going to hurt even more knowing he's going to blame her even more, being like, you poisoned me now. It's like, it's not like you were already on my like kill list. You're going to be even further up on my kill list now because you poisoned. Well, for him, he doesn't want to kill her. He did spare her life, but it's just so he could see her rot away. So I don't know, man. So interested to see where that goes. And then final note episode is Alex and Maggie. Super awkward and everything. Maggie's like, oh yeah, we're okay, right? And Alex being like, yeah, we are. And then like she's meeting with Car, and it's like, all right, you're Car. I've heard so much about it. And then Car's like, right, I've heard so much about you too. It's like, being a little protective, little sis, being like, oh yeah, I heard about you. You broke my sister's heart. Screw you, Maggie. Like it didn't come to that, but I love the tone of just being like, screw you, Maggie. How dare you play with my sister's heart? And if I could, I'd melt your brain with my heat vision right now. Obviously, Cara wouldn't do that. It'd be kind of cool if she would like to even throw that out there, just kind of mutter it underneath her breath or something. And Maggie'd be like, "What'd you say?" It's like, "Oh, nothing." Just kind of being a protective little sister. So, with the way they are, I don't know why in my mind I have a hard time. Like, I guess for some weird reason, I feel like Kara is more the older sister, but at the same time, like, in that sense, because I guess it's because of the whole power dynamic. It's like, because she does have superpowers, you do kind of forget she is the little sister. I mean, granted, you don't forget for long because you're like, yo, Alex spent so much of her life protecting a little sister, so. But nevertheless, Maggie and her are kind of slowly getting back to being good. I mean, Alex slayed it on thick. It's like, yo, I pushed myself. I was like, I wasn't sure about this. You were there to kind of support me. You told me like, come out to my sister, my family. I came out to my sister. She accepted me. And she's like, I went through all of this because, I was like, it's tough and everything, but at the very least it means I can be honest and open about how I'm feeling. And that includes how I feel about you. And I wanted to be with you, but it turns out you're like, oh no, you can't be with me and everything. And we can just be friends. It's like, yo, it don't work like that. But Maggie's like, no, we can't. And she's like, no, I'm done. We're not. So, but by the end of the episode, she's like, I do hope that one day we can go back to being friends because I don't want you not to be a part of my life and everything, which I have a personal problem with that line. No, because it's like, I've had an ex tell me that before, and that phrasing, like, I can't imagine my life without you. It rubs me the wrong way just because of personal experience. I don't hate that. It's just an interesting thing. Like, I have my own problems with that in my own personal life, so that's why I'm like, But at the same time, like, I brought it up last episode. I feel like obviously Maggie does like her, but it's like Maggie's kind of like, yo, to me, I look at Maggie's perspective as being like, hey, I just got out of a relationship, which is reasonable, but like, I'm going to turn you down because I just got out of a relationship. I literally had my heart broke. I'm not ready to jump into another relationship. And at the same time, too, it's like, she want to test the waters a little bit. Like, get to know Alex a little bit more, spend a little more time together, be friends and stuff, and then we might work our way back around to that or something. I mean, who knows? I mean, not unless they make it so that Alex does get interested in someone else and it causes a little bit of jealousy. I mean, the love triangle's rolling around. It got Jimmy, Monel, and Kara, and then maybe Alex, Maggie, and another girl in her life. I mean, I don't know. Like like once again, it hasn't popped up yet. Max Lord. I guess really because maybe the reason why they kind of keeping him reserved is because it's like, I mean, maybe they just haven't called him back because they're just like, oh, they haven't decided what they're going to do with Max Lord's character yet, or because the main focus of this season is having Cadmus. So I guess they feel like Cadmus and Max Lord would be a little too much, especially because like Max Lord is kind of Lex Luthor like. So I'm guessing like having Lillian be there is kind of like already filling that role maybe. So I don't know, because that was kind of what I was getting from the first season, like there was going to be something between them, but apparently not. I don't know, like I said, Alex is kind of discovering herself this season, I guess, because it's also like the creators and the writers kind of discovering the character, just like the actress is too, just like you seeing all of it kind of evolve together. So it was kind of interesting. But nevertheless, at the very end of this episode, we got introduced to like a plan. It's like, oh, tell me what about Medusa, which, if you're not that familiar with Greek mythology, being, depending on what mythology you go by, like different things, like if you go by like the God of War games or whatever, Medusa's like the queen of Gorgons. I mean, you look at you turning into stone type of situation, snakes in the air. From like I said from different things, because in some cases it's like Medusa's like the only one. In other cases I've seen that like I said, the queen of Gorgon. Like I said, I'm not that well versed in Greek mythology, but I picked up some stuff here and there. I know the general idea. So I'm curious what that is about. I mean, obviously that's next week's episode, which is in fact part of the 4-night crossover. Super excited for it. Like I'm getting giddy. It's starting with Supergirl. And now the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's something I've been thinking about this since over the weekend, because obviously I've known for a while it's coming up and everything. But what I was kind of thinking is that basically what I'm gonna do is, rather than doing it day by day, especially because like Flash, Arrow, and Legends, all of those episodes are called Invasion, because Supergirl is kind of the introduction. I think it's playing the introductionary role, and then the rest of the nights are kind of building upon that. So what I'm going to do instead of just doing, because I'll be literally labeling every episode Invasion. So what I'm going to do is obviously I'm going to break it down episode by episode. Every episode I'm going to watch them and then record them like I do with every other podcast normally. But what I'll do instead is I will, at the end of the week, Friday, whereas normally I'd be putting up Thursdays, I will be put up the entire week as one. I will, like, throughout the week, I'll be recording them, and then on Thursday night after I finish with Legends of Tomorrow, or, Friday when I end up putting it up or whatever, I'm gonna cut it all together and then upload that. It'll just be one long thing, and, I'll break it down by episode. At the end of it, kind of tell you how I might have felt about it, the entire thing in general. It's gonna be interesting doing it like that, because basically I'm gonna be passing it down to myself in the future, so everything else will be staying. Like, for example, next week, because normally I package this, obviously Lucifer and Gotham together, and then on Tuesday, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comes back next week too. So, but what I'm going to do is, those nights are still going to stay, those shows. Like, so for instance, next Monday, I will be doing Lucifer and Gotham. It will be going up the next day, but Supergirl won't be going up until the end of the week. Same thing for the Flash. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will go up by itself, and Flash will be connected with the other stuff. So that's how I'm doing it. I'm bringing it up here, and I'm going to remind you as well in Flash. I might do a video where I bring it up, kind of just a reminder, just in case anyone's curious or whatever. So I just kind of wanted to go ahead and get that out there so that you'd understand. Because it's also a little bit about me testing the waters a little bit too, because I made a video like last week about changing out the podcast. So this might be kind of a test format of what I'd kind of do with the podcast, because basically putting them, like, all the Not Too Comic Books together, all the super fantifies, all the crime centrics, I've kind of discussed that before. So this kind of be a test run of that. But like I said, that's at least for now. I kind of 100% decided I'd do something like it, but like I said, so it's test running it. So yeah, that was just kind of the last thing I wanted to kind of comment on that. So. And now moving on to this week's episode of Lucifer. So in this episode, the case this week was about a guy named Dean Cooper, who actually owns like blocks of land around LA. Blocks. And one of those particular blocks he owns is Lux, the club that blocks around that surround the club that Lucifer owns, Lux. And basically, him being murdered kind of screws Lucifer over when his son Eric shows up to buy, is basically kicking Lucifer out, which pisses Lucifer off because it's like, this is his home. He already had to state to his mom, like, this is my territory. I'm staying here. I'm not going to heaven. I'm not going back to hell. I'm staying here. This is where I belong, and this is where I'm going to stay. Now, it turns out Eric had his reasons for doing what he did, because basically his dad had basically run the business into the ground, and basically they were kind of broke, so he was trying to trying to liquidate whatever he could that his dad owned to kind of, because basically he wanted to kind of keep things going with his wife Christy, because basically he wanted to keep up the lifestyle that she'd become accustomed to, and he was kind of afraid that if he kind of let it slip a little bit, that maybe she wouldn't be around. But she's like, I'm not here for your money. I love you through, for better or worse. I'm here. We're going to stick it through to the end. So it's kind of like, oh, I mean, especially because, it's even more sadder because he tried to kill himself because he didn't want to disappoint her. So he'd rather throw himself off a roof. I mean, granted, I guess he's lucky he did it before Lucifer could, because Lucifer was super pissed because it's like he came in there and took his family. I mean, it's like he took his home. I don't know what I'm saying, family. He took his home, like kind of his sanctuary. And it's like, and he was very smug about it too. Like, it's like, it's like your dad literally died like an hour ago and you're already liquidating his assets and stuff like that. It's like, okay, not only is that a little suspicious, but he didn't kill his dad. You ended up finding out a lot of things about the whole situation, that basically Dean Cooper basically there's a lady that was involved in the situation too, that basically Dean had basically held that section, especially the Lux blocks, basically held that in front of her face, basically offering to sell it to her, but kind of dangling it in front of her, just kind of enjoying to watch her squirm. And now that because she bought it up immediately and she was super happy about it, and Lucifer's like, tell me what you really want. And she's like, to basically have everything Dean had. And she basically wants to destroy it all because it's, I guess, that deal. I don't know whether it's just like in general she hated him, which it seems like a lot of people naturally didn't like him. Even Lucifer himself is kind of like kind of a scummy human being. But at the same time, it's like I don't know whether it's because she just genuinely hated him, or was it because of that particular deal that was kind of connected to Lux or whatever. Just the fact is he held out all these years that it pissed her off even more. But she was basically like, she would tear down Lux and make something in its stead, like a strip mall or something like that, just because she wanted to destroy everything he owned. So that was kind of interesting. You also found out that, which was kind of, I saw his name in the opening. I was like, Flex, that's so cool. Flex Alexander was in this. He basically played a guy that was kind of like, he tests people's loyalty, essentially. Like, if, you have a wife that you're like wondering if she's with you for the right reasons or cheating or whatever, he kind of steps in. Well, apparently Dean Cooper hired him to kind of test his daughter-in-law Christy's loyalty, kind of showing her, because he thought she was a gold digger or whatever, but no, she didn't bite. She simply loved Eric and just wanted to be with him. But that wasn't good enough for Dean, so he set up he faked some photos and then basically ended up showing them to Christy. Christy got found out and in a fit of rage ended up killing him. They ended up confronting him about it, and he had that moment where it was kind of a beautiful moment where it's kind of like Eric was like, no, I did it. And it's like, you do both realize that you both admitting to this means you both go to jail. And they're like, they understand that. It's like, we'll get through it together. So it's a very beautiful moment, but you have Lucifer kind of standing there like, what the hell is wrong with you? You do realize that by both of you, like, giving up, admitting to this, no one's winning. Basically, it means you're losing everything. So what's the point of even trying? Like, why are you trying to do this? Because it's like, it's not a sweet thing. It's just stupid in his mind. Which all kind of ties into the other story aspect of this episode. And that's kind of like, well, you have Lucifer's mom, their mom, trying her best to convince Lucifer, because she still wants Lucifer to come back to heaven with her. Which something I want to quickly add. I thought of this, I think, last week, but I forgot it, because I forgot to bring it up during the recording, and then I was like, oh, I'll leave a comment on the video, but then I forgot about that too. Part of me was thinking, like, maybe their mom is the reason why Uriel had the blade. What if that whole situation was a setup by her? What if she actually got contact with Uriel and kind of planned the whole thing? Because she's like, okay, Uriel, I'll go back to hell, but you have to do this, and that. Kind of like, it's a package deal or something like that. Maybe, or maybe she asked for something else in return. I don't know. We'll just kind of. But my thing is, like, the fact is, I'm sure getting Azrael's blade wasn't the easiest thing. I mean, she's literally the angel of death, and it's like a very powerful weapon. It's like, I don't think you would just casually leave that around. I mean, because we never really learn what her status currently is, like why she hasn't noticed that her blade is missing, you know? I mean, maybe she has multiple weapons, and it's kind of like maybe for her, like any weapon she touches automatically becomes like a weapon of mass, like, you know, killing, that basically it does what it does. But still, the fact is it has the properties that it does. Like the fact is anyone who touches it kind of goes a little crazy, makes you think that it is a legit, like not just a one of a kind. It is in fact a one of a kind blade. But like I said, maybe Azrael has a whole bunch of other weapons or similar blades like that, so it didn't really register to her. But it's like, who out of anyone would have access to it? Maybe Uriel outright just stole it because he is smart and scheming like that. So maybe he just stole it. But there's also the possibility that his mom was behind all this. And, you know, this whole like, oh, Uriel being dead thing was kind of, you know, I still feel like it's a front, you know, because really her ultimate goal is getting back what she lost, her powers, and just kind of, you know, in a way getting payback at God. I mean, that's really her main motive behind this. She still has a minute out thinking like, oh, it's really all for my son's sake, which you still have Maze being like, wake up. You know, she's trying to tell Lucifer and Amenadal, don't believe her. Like, she's got you all fooled. Like, she's like, because Maze is kind of the only one who sees her for who she really is, that she's a very manipulative person, that she really doesn't care about anyone but herself. And I kind of agree with that. She pretends to be the loving mother, but it's like she can hide behind all this like provocation, but it's like I see her for what she really is. And it's like, it's sad that, I mean, granted, to a certain extent you see that Amenadal kind of sees it, because essentially she basically took a guy that basically makes explosives and was like, best way to get Lucifer on our side to go back home is get rid of the one thing that's keeping him here, Lux. So she was going to have him blow it up, but then like Lucifer, which I love the fact is Lucifer came in, all those guys were packing up his stuff. They're like, hey, we're just doing our job. He's like, oh, you don't know who you're messing with. And it's about time you learn. It's like, oh, he's about to, I was like, oh, don't tell me about to, because at first I was like, oh god, he's going to go all devilish, but then Chloe's going to be nearby, so it doesn't necessarily work or whatever. And it's like, next thing you know, quick cut to them like dancing and partying. I'm like, okay, that's the Lucifer way of handling things. I really like that. That's your way of handling that. And the fact is, she was going to be like, hey, I'm going to blow this place up. He's like, the guy that I wanted to do it kind of got a conscience all of a sudden. It's like, there's too many people in here. He's like, who cares? Like, you know, I guess I have to find another means of destroying it. A minute I was trying to tell her, wait, whoa, that's wrong. So he got to see a little bit of that darker side of her not caring. Like, I mean, how are you he completely like leapt over the whole fact of what she did last episode, putting the blade in human hands so that it would drive people crazy, so they start going around killing someone to get God's attention. So it's kind of like, why didn't you jump at that? You were complaining about your mom killing innocent people. It's like, come on, you know, there were plenty of innocent people dropping dead last episode because of the blade and everything. So it makes you wonder. I don't know. I feel like I said, I threw out the whole blade theory. I couldn't be completely wrong. Maybe Uriel, because like I said, there was never any real question about where Uriel got it. Like I said, maybe the assumption is he just got, like, you know, very sneaky and just took it. But like I said, I just get the feeling like she's the reason why he has it. Maybe Azrael's locked up somewhere because Mommy Dearest locked her up somewhere and took a weapon. Like I said, maybe her and Uriel work together. I'd love that to be the twist, but maybe it's not. Like, I don't know. It's just as the episodes progress, like I knew from the very beginning you couldn't trust Mommy, and it's like Lucifer kind of was right on the money, but it's like his reasoning of what she was here for was wrong, you know, but he was right to be very reluctant to trust her in the very beginning, and it's like I said, legitimate only, like, you know, it's getting to that point even, you know, like I said, Amenadal is too, but it's still not enough to kind of like completely distrust her, so. But what was an interesting thing is we finally had Dr. Martin and her finally meeting, and it's like, oh, should you really be throwing all this stuff out there for her human brain to not comprehend? It's like, oh, no, it's good. She knows, she had like a crash course on like, you know, celestial beings and stuff like that. She's good now. And then basically she's like, all right, you have all these conversations with my son. And basically, because like, you know, Linda was kind of like, oh, thank you for, you know, helping all with this. And she's like, It's like, we're really, I don't think she ever had a hand in making existence, because I'm pretty sure that was kind of God's side thing. I mean, little does Linda know that basically his mom hates humanity. Because basically it was kind of, I guess, kind of like, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? God never gave her a lot of attention. I will put it like that. So, she harbors resentment towards humanity and stuff like that. So it's like, if only you knew, it's like you're up there thanking her and everything. But then she goes as far as like, oh, you helped out my son. Thank you and everything. So the fact that y'all talk about stuff and she's like, I'm not going to tell you what we talk about. And it's like, just because she wanted extra leverage to find out a way to kind of get to Lucifer. But then you had that moment where Chloe shows up and she's like, okay, Lucifer, you should have known. Like, I was like, oh man, that sucks. Chloe's gonna have to shut this down. But then she's like, turned out all, and it's like, oh, you go, Chloe. And she's like, and then Lucifer kind of convinces her to dance, and you see them having so much fun and everything. And it's like, and then it clicks in her mind. And then, like, talking to Linda, it points it out, like, the one thing that's keeping him on Earth is Chloe. Yes, he likes being here on Earth. It is kind of a very comfortable place, but what he loves about it most is Chloe. Like, she's always been the reason why he's done what he's done. And it ends up being an interesting thing where you have we had Linda kind of pointing out to, because you previously brought up the fact is people come to LA for multiple reasons. I'm sure he's come to LA, obviously, but typically people come to LA for two reasons. They're running away from something or they're trying to find something. And it's like, what was he trying to do? Because she basically brings up the fact is like, because basically at the end of the episode, Chloe got the club back. She basically pulled some favors because basically, in a sense of kind of making it a historical landmark, she kind of essentially kind of did that where it's like, oh, there's such rich history to Lux, so it's like you can't tear it down. It can't be, it should be, and Lucifer has a capital, so he could easily buy it back and whatnot. So, but she did that for him. And he's like, I don't know how to thank you. So he invited her out for dinner and everything, which is kind of like, oh, that was kind of sweet. It's just like, it's nice to see them kind of get closer and closer together. But Linda had brought up something. She was like, the fact of the matter is, like, he's like, he didn't understand. He was like, why would she do that without asking for a favor? Because, he's kind of the dude that kind of makes deals. And like, she did that out of kindness for her. He's like, I don't get it. It's like, Chloe cares about you. She knows how much Lux meant to you. So obviously she'd do it because that's what friends are for. And she basically points out the fact this is like, something you've never, you've told me the truth, but why haven't you? He's like, I tell her all the time. He's like, yeah, but she doesn't believe you. You showed me. So why haven't you showed Chloe? Is because you're afraid? And legitimately it is. Because Chloe got a glimpse of what he really looked like, but subsequently since then, he's always joked about like, yeah, I'm the devil. And he knows that she doesn't believe him, but he doesn't want her to see the real him because he saw how Linda reacted, and I think he's scared that he'd scare Chloe away if that was the case, because now he's starting to realize how he really feels about Chloe, but sadly even missing dinner with her. And it was just like, dude, that's such a damn shame. Oh, it sucks because it's like he's always been very flirtatious towards her, but now that it's become more apparent to him that he actually has feelings for her, it changes things. It's like, you can be very flirtatious, with your, because he's a very charming, flirtatious dude by nature, but to add in the fact it's like, oh, I actually have feelings for Chloe, it makes things a little weird for him, a little awkward. So, it's like, it's part of their relationship, it's part of their thing, and it's like, developing feelings for her kind of like throws that out of whack. So, I don't know, that's kind of how I'm chalking that up. And it's like, what would he do? Like, how, the question is, how would Chloe react to seeing the real him? Could he even show, yeah, his powers, he becomes mortal in everything when he's around her, but his powers still work. He's just not immortal. She does make him human. So I wonder, will he, by the end of this season, because it's a Vertigo title and everything, kind of bringing eyes on, because it's like you take Clive, the partner, finally knowing the truth and everything. It took like most of season one for major, like, kind of possible love interest to kind of, I say possible because, there's just kind of, the relationship is back and forth and kind of up and down like it is. But Clive finally found out in season two's finale about zombies and everything. So it makes you wonder, would this be the season that Chloe learns the truth about everything? And another interesting thing about this episode is to kind of prove her kind of pushing more to the point, figuring out like, oh, Chloe is someone that Lucifer is infatuated with. She decides to kind of get close to Dan, which there was that moment in the precinct when she kind of was like looking at him, and you saw him kind of looking at her, kind of going, and it was kind of interesting. And you saw her she tried to use an opportunity to make Dan a means of getting closer to Chloe. I thought it was going to be like, oh, get closer to it and then you spend time around Chloe and use that opportunity to kind of strike. But it's like, oh, the moment she ended up sleeping with Dan, which Aminadab was just completely disgusted by. Maze was kind of like, oh, it's like, oh, I thought Maze was going to get it because Maze was like, oh, hooking up with she didn't just hook up with anybody. She hooked up with Chloe's ex. He's like, but then Aminadab was kind of shushing it away, being like, it's okay. Dan's kind of he's a good-looking guy, which, and that also brings up the question. It's like, I'm still wondering about the whole Maze and Aminadab situation. Will that ever kind of, turn into anything else? But, yeah, man, it's very interesting to see that kind of put in perspective. Is like, we've always known, like, that's always how it starts. It's like, oh, you're a little flirtatious and everything, but then real feelings develop, like, I mean, it makes you wonder. The question is, how does Chloe feel about the whole situation? It seems like it might be a little bit more, because the fact is that Dan himself kind of opened up to Mommy Dearest about it, and she was kind of like, he's basically like, he knows that Lucifer kind of has feelings for Chloe. Whether they're reciprocated, he kind of doesn't know. He doesn't think they are, but that is a question. And like I said, though, how would she feel if she knew the truth? I mean, the episode ended with her planting the bomb underneath Chloe's car, and it's like, dude, which I already kind of spoiled myself because I had to make sure that whether there was an episode next week or not. I know excuses, but still, I ended up watching the preview. It seems like some very interesting things are going. Some new developments are going to happen. Some things are revealed, and it's going to be interesting to see what those reveals are. Like, I won't spoil it for anyone that hasn't watched the previews, but obviously I'm going to talk about it all next episode, so why really bring it up now? But it's going to be interesting where that new knowledge takes people, the things that come about next episode. How everything plays out. It's sad that like she's going to such extremes to try to bring her son back. Like I said, legitimately the only thing she wants her son by her side, so she has more arsenals on her side when she tries to take back heaven. Like, tries to get back what was lost for her. That's the only reason why she needs muscle on her side. I mean, I guess for her, it's like, I guess she figures if she can find a way to get Aminadab his powers back, which I was thinking that was going to be what was going to happen. I thought she was going to find a way to, well, she does know a way to get his powers back. Maybe try to get his powers back first and have him help her get hers back. It's like, but the thing is, I don't think she will ever be able to get Lucifer. Like, the closest thing she'd be able to do to get Lucifer on her side is, it is doing what she's doing, is kill Chloe. If Chloe's not there, Lucifer, his main reason for staying, like I said, he likes Earth and everything. He has fun in LA, but it's like Chloe is his main reason for staying. Granted, he was there, like I said, wasn't he there like 5 years before, I think that was the thing. He's been living in LA for like 5 years. So obviously he liked it there before, but it's like Chloe's been his main reason for staying. So just overall a very interesting episode. I'm just very curious to see where everything goes, next episode. So I know, but still just how everything's going to play out. What are the surprises are they going to throw our way? And now finally moving on to this week's episode of Gotham. So, an interesting episode where we have a big different parts. One, basically, there was kind of a hit put out on Don Falcone, Carmine to be specific. But then it turns out it's not actually for him, it's actually for Mario. And which kind of gets Jim kind of a little concerned, because Jim, Mario's like, oh yeah, you would love me out of the picture and everything. And like Jim is like, it's blatantly clear. It's like Jim's like, I'm not doing this for you, douchebag. I'm only doing this for Lee, because Lee cares about you, so that's the only reason why I'm caring whether you live or die, type of thing. Even have Harvey being like, Jim, tell her how you feel. It's not too late. Lee deserves to know, which, even then he was still, I'll get to that in all due time. But, because originally it went to the guy they originally had labeled as like, oh, the guy who set up the bomb in the car and everything was a guy named Fuse. Track him down, he's dead. And then they find like basically Mario gets attacked by some assassins. Two on a bike, and one of them has a sword and everything. And because for Jim, he feels like, okay, obviously Mario's made some enemies and stuff like that, but then Mario's kind of like, no, it's not like that. Jim's very suspicious of him. Falcone is like, okay, like, no, you don't know my son. You want to think the worst of him because because of Lee and whatnot. But it's like, no, my son is a good man. And Gordon kind of points it out, like, oh, at the very least you think he is. Anyway, you end up finding out, long story short, obviously, because you've watched the episode and everything, finding out that because we finally in this episode get the name, so I can finally start calling him by it again, Court of Owls. I could have called him that before because I got the name spoiled for me and everything, but now we're going to move forward. We're going to know the name Court of Owls. But it's very interesting because apparently, because Falcone kind of figured it out and everything, he pretty much figured it was the court that was after him and his son, and he ends up taking the tooth out of the guy and it has an owl kind of sketched into it, and it's like, I knew it was you, son of a guns. It even has a sit down with Catherine and is like, you came after my son. Because to me, it's like, it makes sense that Falcone, out of anybody, he's probably one of the few people left in Gotham that really knows about them, because apparently he's had dealings with them in the past, and one particular being Indian Hill. Apparently he's the one that got it for them. So that was kind of interesting. But it's like, of course he would, because it's like, he kind of ran Gotham, and the fact is they kind of work in the shadows, and they always take interest in people who run Gotham. Like I said, they've taken, like for instance, they've taken an interest in Penguin just because he's kind of been in the position that he's in. But that was a very interesting conversation between the two, being like, hey, like, you came after my son, I will come after. She's like, you don't actually think you'd win, do you? Because you wouldn't. He's like, if my son dies, who said anything about winning? I will come after you with everything I've got. I will burn Gotham down. Because for them, because they have a very interesting mentality, like, at least with Catherine, she was kind of like, hey, we're here, Gotham's in chaos. We're here to save it. So it's kind of a mentality of like, even with all the evil they do, their grand purpose is to kind of, I guess in a way, unify and save Gotham, turn it into a utopia of sorts. I mean, I'm using that term loosely because I doubt that's what they're aiming for, but it seems like they are under the mindset that they are the ones that are going to save Gotham, that basically, because it seems like for a long time they've kind of run the scenes, because obviously they have their connections to the the founding families of Gotham, so probably worked behind the scenes. They oil the cogs that keep things spinning. Like I said, like how they plan about saving Gotham, like I said, their ultimate goal seems to be saving Gotham to a certain extent, but like how they plan on going about it, what this has to do. Like I said, I'm sure that experiment Bruce, I'm sure he has to play, because we haven't seen him for a while, so I'm sure he plays a part in it. And what's this whole experiment? I mean, obviously a big part was like, the whole Indian Hill experiments were mainly for the purpose of immortality. That's what the court wanted, because for them it's like they want to be alive long enough to, obviously, because it's like, everyone who wants power wants immortality. It just kind of goes hand in hand. But for them, it's just kind of like so they can be alive forever, I guess, to kind of reap the rewards of kind of working behind the scenes and kind of changing Gotham. It's like, because it's like no matter how powerful you are, everyone dies eventually. So I guess that's kind of one thing. So we end up finding out that basically, kind of talking about it really quickly, the whole situation with Ivy, it's like, for one, that was stupid. Like trying to charm Alfred into getting you out of there. It's like, that was stupid. It's like, you're being hunted, so why would you go out? Why would you have them? Because I was thinking like, okay, she'd sneak out and then come back in, and then because the security was down, they didn't hear the guys come, and that's when it would happen. Like they'd be attacking the mansion. But it's like, no, they got her probably because the system was down. They were able to grab her without any alarms going off. I feel so bad for Alfred. They're like, Bruce is like, how did she get away? And he's like, that's not important right now. It's like his pride is too broken to admit that he got duped. It's like, dude, you can't blame yourself. It's like it's a concoction of chemicals that kind of mess with your head and stuff like that. So it's like, you can't really blame yourself. Like I said, I really appreciate that that's kind of stepped up. It's not like, because it's like, rather than her getting superpowers, it's like the kind of, it's a concoction, her kind of aphrodisiac kind of power of just kind of tempting men and making them kind of do what she wants them to. But we end up finding out that basically the guys that have been hunting them aren't actually with the court. they're actually a group known as the Whisper Gang that's fighting them. Because basically, they're telling Bruce, it's like, you don't want to make a deal with them because they will go back on it because they only have their self-interest at heart. Like, they'll pretend to be working with you for a while, but eventually they will stab you in the back. It's like, that's what they basically did to them. Because apparently with the Whisper Gang, there was like hundreds of them, and now we're like whittled down to the very few, at the very least, the three that we know of. I only saw one of them, like, well, we saw two of them dying, so there's at least one of them still alive, right? Because I don't know who that assassin dude is that works for the court, but pretty badass, just pretty bloody, just up and just stabbing the dudes, and him and the leader of the Whisper Gang kind of going at it was pretty sick, and then he just had to, like, kind of jump off the car and come down stabbing. So, I mean, like, legitimate, when I look at him, the first thing that comes to my brain is Nightwing a little bit. I'll get to that in a second, but I just thought about something, I'll get to that in a second, but that was just kind of interesting to me. Just like, I don't know, I guess more so in anything, the mask, I don't know why, it just kind of resonates with me, because it's like, in the Bat family, Nightwing's the only, well, Robins are like that too. I'm about to say, like, a disconnected mask. Because even, well, I guess it depends on what iteration of them you look at. But more often than not, Batman and Batgirl usually have the cowl. Robins are usually the ones that have, like, just a little mask. You know, whether it's Dick, Tim, or Damien, you know, depending on which, or Jason, whichever Robin you want to go with. I literally had to take the time to think about the Robins' names and stuff like that, because I had to make a point of listing all the Robins I knew to kind of show off a little bit of my DC knowledge, to show you I know some things. Nevertheless, but they're kind of dead now. But like I said, I think there is one left. But it's going to be interesting to see what Bruce and them decide to do. Makes you wonder, will Ivy and Selena still be staying there? Because apparently this is all, the key they got is connected to some kind of safe. Basically, the court has one of them, and now Bruce and them have the other, and apparently this safe could lead to their destruction. Not sure exactly what's in the safe. No one knows, but it's going to be interesting. Like, I'm just curious to see, like, will they make Selena and Ivy stay? Because it's like, well, they were hunted by that group, but it's like that group wasn't connected to... I mean, because their worry was the fact is that the court would think, like, okay, they were involved. It's like, no, Ivy took the key by mistake. She didn't know what it was. So it's like, call off your goons, essentially. And also another thing is that Bruce was so willing to work with him. You did forget the fact is that they killed the guy that originally had the key, right? Not unless that was someone else, but I'm pretty sure that was them, because dude had an arrow through his head. It's like, oh, you're completely forgetting that, right, Bruce? They did brutally murder that guy by shooting an arrow through his eye. I mean, granted, maybe he was a douchebag. Maybe he attacked them first or something. Maybe, I don't know. You just kind of quickly forget that. But like I said, they're kind of dealt with now. I mean, at the very least, we knew the three members. Like I said, their numbers were kind of whittled down. Whether those are the only ones left, I don't know. Like I said, plus that one guy still left. But I don't know. Especially because things are kind of complicated between him and Selena. He was a little pissy with her early in the episode. And she's like, okay, what's wrong? It's like, did you really have to tell Ivy that we're a couple? She's like, well, why did you have to tell her we are? It's like, he's just kind of, he's kind of caught up in it and everything. She's like, why can't we just be us? It's just kind of like, why put labels on it? Which is like, I understand where Bruce is coming from, because it's like, he likes you. He doesn't want to shy away from the fact that he likes you. He wants you to be his girlfriend. But Selena's point of view being like, why label stuff? It's like, we like each other. Yeah, we don't have to announce it to the world. Let's just be us. Let's just enjoy each other's company type of thing, too. Got to find that perfect balance of, of the two. So, and really quickly, getting back to Mario, because I completely forgot about it. It clicked in my head, like, it took a while, because I completely forgot. Because I brought up that whole bandage thing. It was the Red Queen episode where Jim was tripping. Basically, you see the mark on his neck, like he had a bandage and everything. I was like, what the hell was up with that? And it's like, now it all made sense. Like, especially why he attacked Jim, why he's being so aggro towards Jim. It's like, jealousy's one thing, but this is kind of something else. I'm like, dude, that's why he's been acting like this, because he got hit by the blood from Tetch, whether he realized it or not. I mean, that's what I'm assuming, but it's like, that's why he's been like this. He's been aggro because of the blood, because it takes, because as we saw with Barnes, like, the fact is there were obvious signs because of the eyes and everything, but other than that, those little fluctuations every once in a while, there's no real way to tell, except for Lee has made a way to detect if someone is infected, but it will help them to eventually find a cure, especially for Barnes. So, which is something I have to remind myself to look up, is because I ended up, because I was Googling, like, because I look up pictures for thumbnails and stuff like that, the list of episodes so I can add it to tags and stuff like that. I ended up looking up Gotham, and one of the autocompletes was Execution or something. Like, okay, so I'm guessing that's who Barnes supposed to be, meaning it's definitely like a, bad thing. So it's not just like a, at the very least, to my knowledge, I mean, just because of that one thing. So it's something I am going to have to look a little bit more into. Hopefully it doesn't end up, I mean, like I said, its own continuity and everything. So I don't think I have to worry about it spoiling anything, but we'll kind of have to wait and see. But anyway, but I really like, because the fact is that, Lee is just kind of saying her final goodbyes to Jim, and just kind of like, oh, bye. And then, she even kisses him and leaves his place, but Mario is there. Then you kind of see it finally kicking in. Like, yep, he's definitely. I had my feelings, but then they finally resonate. It's like, because he went as far as, like, for him, it's like, oh, she's in love with him, and he's trying to steal your girl. He's trying to steal your girl. She's like, she's mine. That's why that line, like I said, that line stuck out to me. I will do whatever it takes to keep her. That, like I said, like, I don't know, we might not be getting to see the real Mario. Yeah, Mario's a little jealous, sure, but I'm sure, like, the blood situation is probably helping with that a lot. I can only assume Jervis infected him at the time when he was there, making Jim trip, and maybe just Mario doesn't remember, or he didn't say anything about it because he didn't think anything about it. Or maybe, when, because he made note of his, like, oh, really? You've discovered a way to detect that. It's like, I don't know, maybe that was kind of supposed to be foreshadowing, but maybe he was a little nervous because he didn't want her to know the truth that he was infected. I don't know. Because he straight up strangled that guy. He's like, why are you after me? And he was saying, like, you know why? Which, the fact is, Catherine did point out the fact is that there is something going on, things that even Falcone himself aren't privy to. Maybe Mario is actually, because I kind of agree, now I'm kind of agreeing with Jim, maybe there's more to Mario than anyone knows. Maybe, just maybe, Mario has been making some dealings with the court. Because they actually said, like, oh, you should be kind of more mindful. You shouldn't be worrying about us. You should be more focused on other things. So maybe they know that Mario is infected or something. It seems like the fact is that they're like, oh, you know why. The reason why they specifically targeted Mario. It wasn't Falcone. If it was about getting Falcone's attention, they would have come after him. But specifically Mario means that Mario's had some bad dealings with him. Either he didn't hold up his end of the bargain or something. And which is going to piss Jim off, because it's like, hey, you're getting a woman that I love. Which she still never told her that. They did get to finally say their goodbyes, but, Jim still just can't bring himself to say it because he doesn't want to. Because he doesn't want to drag Lee back in just to kind of break her heart again. He cares too much for her to do that to him. He's kind of on the right path now, but I guess for him, he's just kind of like, he doesn't want to take the chance he might hurt her again. Plus, it's like, she's happy now, she's with Mario, and he doesn't want to kind of jeopardize that. Which, granted, I mean, he might not have a choice but to kind of jump into their, I mean, I'm sure signs are going to pop up, even if Lee kind of mentions, like, oh, the fact is like, oh, yeah, I bumped into Jim today. Oh, don't ever say Jim's name in front of me again or something like that. So, I mean, we'll just kind of have to wait and see. And kind of final note of the episode is this whole Ed situation. I love the fact that you have Barbara busting in on Penguin, basically having a conversation with some of the top dogs in town about, how things are running. And she kind of, she's kind of a crime boss in her own. She kind of wanted to be invited to it, but mainly it was like looking for Tabitha and Butch. But it turns out the person that has him is Ed, who is torturing them because he, is certain that the person that killed her was Butch, and basically plays out the whole situation of being like, okay, to kind of pay Butch back for it, he's like, instead of killing him, I'll break your heart first and then kill you, and that heart being Tabitha. So he puts on this elaborate thing, basically a guillotine on her hand, and basically gives her a buzzer. Like, basically she pressed the buzzer to shock him because he's been being shocked the entire time. If you press it, Butch will die, and it will stop the blade from coming down to hit your hand, cutting your hand off, and then, or if you don't press it, your hand will get sliced off, essentially. And Butch is like, oh, she's like, if she doesn't push it, then we'll kind of you'll get out of here together and whatnot. I'll let you go if she doesn't push it. And she's willing to just get her hand cut off. I'll let you go. Which, Butch is kind of like, come on, it could be you and me. And she's like, I'm in a mood. I like you, but I'm not in a loving mood right now. And it's like, oh, that's a little sad. But then Butch says something that kind of melted my heart a little bit. He's like, Tabitha, I love you. Even if you don't love me, I still love you. And for a guy like me, that's more than I can ask for. I was like, you go, Butch. That's some beautiful stuff to say. And then Tabitha had a change of heart. She's like, Butch, you're sweet, and dropped the switch. Because even Ed didn't see that coming, because, you know, he had said it at first. He's like, yeah, I knew she was going to say that. You know, she doesn't care about you that much. I kind of the reason why I gave her the choice and everything. And then she proceeds to get her hand sliced off, and it's like, ooh. Because basically, to stop him, Butch told him, was like, fine, okay, I did what you wanted, fine, you're right, I killed her, I blew her brains out, and then, like, basically shot her, and then, like, Ed's like, wait, you lied about it, she didn't die that way, her brains, she's like, dude, I was been telling you the entire time, I didn't kill her. And then you have, Barbara showing up in time, but then Ed's kind of walking away because he felt bad about it, because it's like, I mean, for him, it's like, more so than anything, it's like, okay, I kind of put you through that for nothing, but mainly it's also because, like, I still haven't got the person that really hurt Isabella. Because he's already pissed that everyone keeps saying her name is Isabel, and I just said Elizabeth, Isabella. Nevertheless, speaking of Barbara, I really want to quickly make an aside before I continue a little further. The fact is that she went to that shop. One, that situation was weird when she locked the guy up in that headstock thing and started whipping him, and he's like squeezing his butt and everything. Like he was too into it. He was like, ooh. You could see like a look of ecstasy on his face. I'm like, this is weird. This is weird, and it's making me a little uncomfortable. It's funny, yet it rubs you the wrong way. I was just like, dude. Side note. Am I the only one that I couldn't help but notice the freaking Catwoman costume in the background? Like on one of the mannequins, there was kind of like a whole Catwoman getup. It was more kind of like you know, I guess the typical leather kind of not leather, is it spandex? I don't know what the material is called because I'm an idiot. The typical design you see on a dominatrix, you see that in the background. So I'm like, okay, interesting. But yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting that played out like that. But nevertheless, because Barbara figured it out because she learned about how Penguin's like, oh, Penguin likes Enigma. Like, likes him. And it's like, ooh. And then basically she figured it out. It's like, Penguin's the one that killed the librarian. And she's like, don't worry, Butch. You don't have to worry about us getting our revenge. We won't even have to lift a finger. We don't have to start a war ourselves. We'll just kind of let someone else start it for us. Basically going to turn Ed against Penguin. Now that's going to be very interesting. I was wondering how the truth is going to come out. And now it's like, I mean, it makes you wonder who will come to the truth first. Will Ed learn the truth because he figures it out himself? Because the only other person that has money to be able to pull something off like that would be Penguin. But he's like, no, Penguin's my friend. There's no way he'd ever hurt me like that. Or will we have Barbara telling him the truth? Because for Barbara, it's like, it means taking out, well, for one, Enigma, because it's like, if those two fight, it's kind of a situation where they could take each other out, or even if one of them takes the other out, it gives them an opportunity to take the other one out, because it's like the last one standing, because they'll be a little weakened after everything. Because basically Barbara kind of wants to get respect. She wants to kind of get her own operation going, kind of want, in her words, sit at the Bit Boys table with all the other kind of top names and the other top people in crime and whatnot. So I'm just very interested to see how that will all play out. Penguin versus Riddler. You know, it's like, oh, they were, you know, such close allies. They were friends to begin with, and now it's because, you know, seeing how it makes you wonder how will Ed feel realizing, like, not only that Penguin did that to Isabella, the woman he loves, also finding out that his closest friend, his only friend, not only betrayed him and killed the woman he loves, but is also, in fact, in love with him. So that's got to complicate things a little bit. Or maybe Barbara just tells him, it's like, oh yeah, Penguin killed her. And then, like, maybe it turns into a whole situation. And then, like, Ed's about to kill him. It's like, why did you kill her? It's like, because I love you. And it comes out like that. I don't know, it's going to be interesting, because it's like, how will Penguin react in kind? Because it's like, Penguin will have to fight against the person that he loves most. So it's going to be, I don't know, it's just going to be complicated. And just overall, just super interested to see how this all plays out on all fronts, you know, going forward. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.